This boy and girl are going to be well equipped when the time comes to take their places as worthy members of adult society.
Aloha, y'all. This is Daniel Eisenman, the host of the Breaking Normal podcast, where my guests are all invited based on the frequency of synchronicity, all done in person, and all trailblazers in the breaking of all things normal. All right. Aloha, y'all. Welcome back to the Breaking Normal podcast. This is the third one this week. And as you know, the schedule is synchronicity. And I'll explain how I believe Yoshua landed here based on a bit of a synchronicity. Sean recommended we chat. And I think it was because he called you, like, everything fermentation, I believe.
A wee bit amount, yeah.
I mean, maybe you know a bit about mead.
Yes.
I think I was asking him questions about like the origin of alcohol and mead versus beer. And he was like, you definitely need to have this guy on the podcast. And I'm like, I think I've heard of him. Yoshua Greenfield. Yeah. And then the next day, I go to meet up with Andre, who's been on the show about 2 weeks ago from Jacob Springs, to give him some freeze-dried milk. He wanted to experiment. I have a freeze dryer, like a little pharmaceutical freeze dryer at my house, and he wanted to experiment with freeze drying that. So we did a little barter for milk and freeze-dried milk.
How'd that turn out?
Good. He was very impressed. He's going to try to make some recipes. I think he's like trying to make sausage out of it and some ice cream and a few other things. Ooh. I didn't try too much of it because it was his product, but it looked amazing. And his milk is amazing. And I think freeze drying is an amazing art. You don't happen to have a freeze dryer, do you?
That's like, I have so many gadgets, and that's the one that's been like top of my bucket list.
Well, let's see if we can get you one. And then, but I go there the following day after meeting Sean, and I go into his little farm stand, and there's your book. And I'm like, what the heavens? This is the guy Sean just told me I should interview. And so I took a picture, sent it to Sean, then I messaged you on Instagram, and sure, we already had an open thread. So welcome to the show.
Well, it's good to be here. Yeah, I appreciate the synchronicities.
Yeah. Why? What does synchronicities mean to you?
To me, they're just like reminders that everything is connected. Every time I see things in sort of patterns, it's always connected, but sometimes I forget or get a little off track, and it's just like the universe reminding me that it's all part of the same thing. Like, oh yeah.
And I think we've crossed paths before this at the creek, it sounds like.
It seems like we're both into going to the creek, maybe getting in the water, and
Yeah. And you live here in North Boulder.
I do.
And first of all, what book did I see? Did you happen to bring that book?
Yeah, I brought the book.
Yeah, this was
with your best friend.
Look at this.
It's part of a book series. That's the fermentation one.
So the title is Fermenting with Your Best Friend.
Yeah.
And it's how to ferment and preserve anything. Apparently I say anything. Weird. I've been accused of this. Question everything and ultimately learn nothing. And I think your Instagram kind of had a similar vibe. First of all, this is a beautiful feeling and looking book. What in the world? So this is for me?
Yeah, it's for you.
Okay.
Please enjoy.
I like the pictures. I mean, look at that dill garlic. Come on now.
I'd say it's everything I know about fermenting, but I've learned a lot since writing it, so it's always growing. Yeah.
It's so thick and big. Yeah. Did you self-publish this?
So yeah.
Okay. When did this come out?
2 years ago, about.
And where can people buy this?
You can buy it, through me on the website. It's on the Amazon thing as well. It's at Jacob Springs. It was at Golden Hoof, but it may have sold out. So
okay, so we have both of our products at Golden Hoof. Cool. I brought you a book, Breaking Normal. It's back there. I figured I'd sign it after us getting to know each other.
Awesome. I love it.
The subtitle of my book is Rewild Your Inner Child and Set the Truth Free. So this is a cool cover.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Is that yogurt? And who is this baby?
That's me.
That's you?
Yeah, that's me.
Wow.
And is that yogurt? I don't know. Whatever it was, it's probably not like raw, fermented, delicious yogurt because we didn't grow up in that environment. But now I have a child, 15-month-old, so similar age, and she's eating a lot of raw fermented yogurt.
15 months?
Yeah.
What's her name?
Amia.
Amia?
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
Amiya.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. What is that? Where did that name come from, and what does it mean?
Do you know the band Yaima? Have you heard of them? Yeah. So they're like really good friends of ours, and we've done a lot of touring with them and retreats and stuff. And we were on tour with them around the time she was being born, and so
touring to do music.
Yeah. Wow. So I played with them a lot. My partner Aja and I, she teaches breath work, and we would do these big events where we would make music, and she would do the breath work. And
How do you spell her name?
Aja, Aja.
Okay, and then so Aja, Yoshua, and then you got
Amiya.
and spell that
Amiya.
Amy.
Amiya.
Oh wow, Amiya.
It's basically the Yaima rearranged. Like, it's pretty much Yaima backwards. And that's how I came up with it. I was like, I wonder what Yaima is backwards, because they're just such a big part of our life. And my partner loves their music and I love it. And I was trying to say it in my head, like, what's Yaima backwards? And Amiya came out. And there was this very synchronistic event of, we thought there was it was a dark storm. We thought it was night, but then all of a sudden this rainbow appears in the sky. And it just kind of.
This happened?
Yeah, this all happened.
Where at?
I used to live up Sunshine Canyon a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, and we just loved it. And then the word means delight, and it just really felt like the
That's
right
what
energy.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. And
So-
in what language does that mean delight?
I don't know what language it is.
Okay.
But yeah, Aja's more into that kind of stuff, so she shared that. Yeah.
I don't believe I've ever met an Amiya, and my daughter's name is Davina. Have you ever met a Davina?
No.
Cool.
It's a cool name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Davina Victoria Eisenman.
Davina Victoria. Wow.
What's her full name?
Amiya Rain Greenfield.
Wow. Okay.
Arg. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So y'all are in North Boulder,
North Boulders, got a little homestead over there.
and you're not touring with music currently.
No, I've kind of it's not fully walked away from that world. Like, I still play music all the time, but more grounded here. We've got a lot of animals and we grow our own food, and you can't really leave too much.
How do people find your music? How do I find your music?
So it's actually called You and the Everybody Band. So,
You and the Everybody Band.
Yeah.
Okay.
and it's very much in the inspirational, or like the improvisational, inspirational spirit of just, let's like get people together that we enjoy, and let's start playing and kind of see what unfolds. I sort of believe that we're all musicians on some level. If you got a heartbeat, you got rhythm. And I like bringing that out. And I've just found over the years of researching and getting to like look at different cultures that food and music are always there. And so good food, good music, good people, good times.
The word improving, is it spelled the same way as improving?
Interesting.
Improving and improving.
I
Are they
never thought about
the
that.
same
Yeah, it's like tripping
spelling?
me out right now. Improving, it might be improv. I mean, improiving. Improv. I guess normally it would be like improvisation. So,
But that is a word,
Yeah.
improving, right?
Yeah.
Or no?
well, maybe I'm just saying. Maybe it's not. Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
it's well. I don't let
Yeah.
the dictionary limit my vocabulary.
I love to write, but like growing up, I was not like words were not good in my brain. I didn't know a lot of big words and stuff.
Well, that might be good for your writing.
Yeah, it's helped. Yeah.
I've heard like the wisest genius in the field can explain their ideas like a 6-year-old clearly, like with the least amount of words.
That makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
Improving and improving. So I also used to host retreats. I hosted, that's what Breaking Normal the book is about, is the golden thread of what I gleaned from hosting these radical health retreats for about 11 years, like about 50 of them, almost every quarter. What were your retreats about? And what were the setup of your retreats?
Yeah, I mean, it was a mixture of a certain style of breath work. My partner teaches music, improvisation. So I teach that side, like helping people just open their voice and kind of find their own improv, and then also nature. So we'd go to like beautiful retreat centers and bring people outside, get them barefoot, walking around, learning about plants and that kind of stuff, and then coming back and getting to connect with themselves through breath and music and mindful eating and what have you. Yeah.
You're not wearing shoes right now.
No, yeah, I don't really wear shoes too often. I see you got some minimal shoes on. Vivo. I like it.
These are from my friend Eagle McMahon, have you heard of him? He's like a top 10 disc golfer. He lives here in Boulder.
Just by name, but
Okay.
yeah.
His actual name's Eagle, and he's been on the show, but we got to get him in the studio here. He is sponsored by them.
Wow.
And he likes Tribe vitamins. Actually, he came off the vegan diet using Tribe vitamins. And we barter. We have the same size shoe.
Oh, amazing.
Why didn't you? One time at my recent New Year's family gathering, I had my girlfriend at the time there with me, and my daughter, and almost all of my family. And my brothers and I, we used to do the retreats together. And one of the ways we would improv or improve these retreats would be to leverage like taboo topics and like just breaking normal conversation starters to the advantage of people connecting better with each other and like being more present. And I remember at that dinner, all of a sudden Timothy, my brother, was like, why don't we all take our shoes off and show each other our feet? And he went first and then I went, and it was, my dad has a very strange foot. He has a huge bunion.
Oh.
So this was like embarrassing in a lot of ways, but not in a bad way. What's a better word for being embarrassed in a good way? What is that called?
It's unique.
So anyways, I was wondering if I could see your foot, or if we could see your foot.
See my foot away.
I think you just show it up here.
Camera.
So do you walk barefoot everywhere? That's
Yeah.
a healthy looking foot. Look how your toes are. Wow.
Yeah, I do. When it gets like insanely cold, I'll put on something.
You can tell the bottom of your foot. You've been like on a lot of like you were in downtown Boulder, so you didn't wear shoes just
No.
even now. Okay.
I did actually take a shower today, so this is probably the cleanest my foot will ever look. But yeah, I really just don't wear shoes anymore. And my dad is a foot doctor, so it's been an interesting thing. And so is my sister. They work together.
They're both foot doctors.
Podiatrists, yeah. So it's been an interesting point of tension in the family.
Where do they work?
They're back east and like outside of Philadelphia.
Well, oh, well, that's funny. My dad's side of the family is from Vineland, New Jersey, which is like 2 hours east of Philadelphia.
Not too far. Wow.
What's the point of tension? What's yeah?
Well,
I'm
it's
so
shifted a
curious.
bit, but when I first really went barefoot, most doctors aren't trained in like barefoot. They're trained in, okay, people wear shoes mostly, and if there's an issue, it's not the shoe. It's like, oh, we have to fix it, like the bunion thing, for example, or cutting off bunions. And there might be reason for that, but in a lot of times the shoe is so tight it's actually pushing the big toe forward and pushing out and creating a bunion. And what the doctor will do is they'll shave off some of that bone to create more comfort so they can go back into a shoe that's causing the problem. So it's like, when you start learning about being barefoot and the benefits of wearing barefoot style shoes and taking care of the foot, a lot of the issues start to go away. And my dad just thinks I'm crazy. And I did a barefoot marathon in the mountains a few years ago. And I think after that, he was like, okay, maybe there's something to this. So last time I went home, he's like, I'm going to x-ray your foot. And then maybe in like 10 years, we'll do it again and just see if things change. And yeah.
Well, at least he's curious.
He's getting more curious.
That is amazing. All right, that's amazing in so many ways. Because first of all, my dad, I think he thinks he got bunions from wearing shoes that were too tight when he was younger.
Yeah.
And they've just gotten worse. And I've also remember when I was like probably about 15 years ago, I was like called myself a Craigslist connoisseur, and I would just go on Craigslist and like I'm like, I want to find a way to get paid to do what I would pay to do. And sometimes there was these like studies where like you could go, they would pay you to go to like Guatemala or Mexico because they knew you were going to get diarrhea to like test an anti-diarrhea medication. And it was like a free trip.
Wow.
I did not do that because I didn't like the idea of taking these like experimental medications. Yeah. But I went in that segment of Craigslist, which probably still exists, like paid studies or something like that. They had a lot of, I'm guessing they were funded by pharmaceutical companies that were testing out pain medicine, like their pain medicine. And the procedure would be to get your bunions shaved. Allegedly, this is extremely painful.
Yeah, it's not. And
is that a common thing your dad does?
It's very common. Yeah, the bunion thing. And there are people, and I've even studied tribes where there are people that are born, from my understanding, with bunions. So it doesn't mean that that's always the case, but it's very common that people get it from a tight shoe and then they shave it off. And then so doctors aren't really trained to say, hey, maybe the shoe is the problem. You look at the shoe, it's always like more cushion, more padding, and just making the problem worse and worse and worse. And there's no blame, and I'm not saying I'm right per se, but when you kind of go into the barefoot world and when you take your shoes off and look at your feet, it's kind of amazing what you discover.
Well, you and Andre both showed up here with no shoes
and
downtown. Like, I think I've heard, like, have you heard of Xavier Rudd?
Yeah.
All right. That's a musician that I would love to meet. And I don't know if it was about him or I'm just making this up, or I thought I heard him or someone in that has a certain similar archetype in my mind as him, that they used to walk barefoot everywhere, but they stopped because they thought they were getting sick from walking barefoot in the city.
Yeah, I mean, I used to live in Brooklyn, and like I didn't really go barefoot until I came to Colorado. So I think if you're in the city, you could totally do it. But the way I see it now is like if you're gonna be on in like a not real kind of artificial floor, it doesn't really matter at that point. So when I go into like Home Depot or something where they won't let me be barefoot, I'll wear like a super thin. I have like a zero like sandal. Same with like if I'm in the airport, I have to wear something. So it's like it doesn't matter. I'm walking on fake floor anyway. I tend to be more extreme, but I'm not too worried about it. But I get the fears.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And then I also, I think it's a great idea. I wear shoes, but the more I've gone barefoot, especially when I started traveling the world to surf,
Mm.
I felt like my feet got so much healthier, so much stronger, so much more resilient. And I also imagine like that your foot doesn't smell like a foot.
Sounds great. That's the best, maybe the best part, like not having to deal with socks and smelly feet. And growing up as a kid, I had a lot of like issues. My dad said my foot was flat, and I had athlete's foot and all this stuff. And it's just, it kind of, you're in a different paradigm, so those things become like irrelevant. Yeah.
Well, how do you, it's for someone like my dad, and maybe it's like my dad like 30 years ago, and they could like start helping their foot now by going barefoot. Do you have a protocol to help people go barefoot, especially if this is like a totally foreign concept?
Yeah, I mean, so part of this, the with your best friend, I have a book series. This is like maybe the fifth or sixth one, but one of them is walking barefoot with your best friend. And the conclusion that I came to in learning how to like rewild my feet per se is, baby steps, and think about like your foot as it's almost like a tender plant that comes out of a seed, and it's very vulnerable at first. But if you really nourish it and take care of it and watch after it, eventually it becomes this beautiful, strong, self-resilient plant. And I think a lot of people are learning about the benefits of things like grounding and stuff now. So just start by taking your shoes off and putting them in the ground, putting them on the earth. So many people are like, oh, I want to be grounded. And they're doing all these practices and they're inside in a sterile room, like meditating and doing yoga. It's like, well, have you even gone outside and just put your feet in the ground? Because maybe that's what you're looking for. And I think when you feel that and you're connected to nature and your feet are actually on the ground, things start to open up. You're like, okay, maybe just take a few steps now and notice. You can go as slow as you want. You don't have to try to like, you're not going to necessarily even go as fast or walk as fast or run as fast as you can with shoes, but go slow and you start to feel other parts of your body and how everything's connected. And not to say it's for everybody, but I've seen a lot of people, something clicks. You're like, oh my God, I used to be barefoot as a kid, or this feels actually good on my feet. I didn't expect that.
Well, the way I look at it too is just as when I've had a kind of almost a rule. It's not like a dogma, but like if I'm traveling and I see clean water, to get in it. There's some sort of like download of like I'm getting my head all the way under a new spring. And I feel similarly to walking barefoot in different parts of the earth. Like I want to download the information, that energy, this uniquely coming from this soil or this grass, or it's like this grass because it's springtime. Like there's an extra vibrancy to it. And then simultaneously, sometimes I get concerned about like when I see my daughter like do it, she is barefoot in the grass a lot, and I'm like, they're not spraying for pesticides here, are there? Like, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, your foot does take in a lot, and it's unfortunate. I like listening to some of the previous podcasts you guys were talking about with like Alice and Sean, and just the amount of things being sprayed into the air and on the ground. It's tough. It's hard to say. I find though, if your body is really healthy, that you're okay. Like I'm not personally concerned about them. If I know there's a place being sprayed, I'm just probably not going to go there.
Yeah.
And there was a good. There's this guy Rob Greenfield, who we share a last name with.
Okay.
And he's like a big environmentalist, barefooter, and pretty extreme guy. And he was talking about how like being barefoot tends to keep you away from places that you don't resonate with, and something because like a lot of places, the whole no shirt, no shoes, no service thing, they don't want people being barefoot, and they don't realize that law came or that slogan came from laws of discrimination many years, trying to keep people out that they didn't, undesirable people they didn't want in. Once you couldn't discriminate, they're like, oh well, let's just make this sign, and then we can be as prejudiced as we want. And it's still around today, which is unfortunate. Yeah.
Wow. I forgot him mentioned that in the previous show, but this is not the first time I'm hearing this sentiment.
Yeah.
So you saw some of the previous episodes with these regenerative agriculture revolutionists in town, which it sounds like you are as well. Is there anything that you think that like, wow, they really like that you really want to make sure we talk about, or that like, man, they could have, I want to hear more about this topic or to get this topic more on in the zeitgeist?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in talking about like the fermentation stuff, because you have the side of the people growing the food and putting in so much energy and love and farming and just the care that I've seen people like Alice and Andre, put into growing food and getting people good food is amazing. And then there's a side of like, what do we do with it once we have it? The moment you take a vegetable and you cut it, it starts decaying. And something that I love about fermentation is it brings life back to food. It not only preserves it, makes it taste delicious, but it actually is bringing in life and probiotics and all this kind of goodness. So there's this sort of unseen world that it's just like in the soil that we don't really understand, but we can kind of see the magic of it.
When did you get into fermentation? Is there like a birth of the inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, I've been cooking for a really long time, and I grew up in a family where like food was not that important. It was just like my mom just putting on whatever frozen canned box stuff. And that really inspired me over time to actually get more into food, and my brother as well. And I had a mentor in Brooklyn his name's Jeremy Omansky, and he would take me out to the parks and would teach me how to forage. And he's like a fermentation master, and he wrote this whole book. It's called Koji Alchemy, and it's all about like using koji, this magical mold that's from China and Japan, and it's basically what's used to make miso and sake and soy sauce, and how to use it in all these different ways. And he's come up with like ways to inoculate this mold on meat and dry age meat in like 3 days instead of weeks, and cure meat. And he just really inspired me to like think outside of the box. And the fact that I could go to these parks that people were just like running around and not noticing and realize that there's food everywhere, that just kind of opened my mind up to a lot of stuff. And then the fermentation is just like, okay, now what do we do with it? And how do we make it delicious? And actually, a lot of people don't realize about fermentation is it makes food safer. There's this fear of like leaving things out, but it actually improves the taste and the preservation. So yeah, it's just cool. It's never ending, rabbit hole.
Yeah, really, it is. Have you heard? What is chicha? Have you heard of chicha? Is this like
Chicha.
spit beer?
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I've had it in Peru. We did San Pedro and Huachuma in Peru, and after the
Which
ceremony.
part of Peru, by the way?
That was in the Sacred Valley, like outside of Ollantaytambo.
Ollantaytambo is one of the most amazing places I've ever been.
I was told that it shares a spine with Colorado. I don't know if you've heard that.
At this first time.
But when I was there, I feel like I'm in Colorado, but like it was like a different frequency, but it was the same, like a different reality, but similar frequency, I should say. And yeah, after we walked down the mountain after we were like kind of coming out of this ceremony, and we went to this little person's house, and these women were just sitting around and chewing corn and spitting it out, and it was just kind of blowing my mind. And we were drinking chicha.
So for someone that they're like, wait, what?
What?
What is
I'm eating
this?
spit beer.
Yeah.
You're basically taking these grains and chewing them, and there's enzymes in your mouth, and they're helping to break down the starches in the beer or in the corn.
So is it cooked corn? Or are they chewing on cooked?
They're cooking the corn, and then they're chewing it, and they're spitting it out, and then that just kind of starts the process. I've also heard of people spitting. I have a friend, Linan, who told me about this. It was like maybe her grandmother's thing where she'll just spit a little bit in her sauerkraut and use that as like a little
I've heard of this
kickstart.
as well.
Yeah.
Like this, and this may be better for yourself.
Your own personal. It's just I served a lot of sauerkraut to a lot of people, so I'm like, do I want to?
Yeah, but if it's for yourself, is it? I remember this guy named Robert Cassar. Have you heard of Robert
No.
Cassar? I think I remember him telling me when he would ferment things, you put your own spit in there if it's for you.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense. I mean, so many of the things and the bodily fluids and the germs, and there's just so much in our society that we're told to fear and told to sterilize things. And I think that's also what I really appreciate about fermentation is it's the complete opposite of that world. And you can compare it to the regenerative soil thing, where in regeneration in soil, we're trying to create biodiversity. Like the more plants we have, the more animals, the more grazing and rotation, the more healthy our environment is, because it's almost like this biodiverse thing that's working together to support one another. Whereas with monocropping, it's the exact opposite. you're killing everything, sterilizing it, and maybe you can grow the tomato, but once that tomato is grown, the soil's dead. And it's the same with fermentation. It's like you can sterilize a package of cream cheese and sell it in the store, and you can even put preservatives in it, but even if there's preservatives in it, that the benzo, whatever the hell's, they only do so much, and that's why when you open a pack of cream cheese after a couple of weeks that's been open already, it's like going moldy and gross. Whereas like I've made fermented cream cheeses with just raw and good quality ingredients, and like months and months and months, it's just getting more and more sour and delicious, and it stays good. I have stuff, probably like a 6-month-old like kefir cream cheese in my fridge that it's just, I open it, it's fine. So
now, quick question: when you see that mold on a store-bought cream cheese, is that dangerous to eat?
I mean, there are different types of molds, and I think the issue is that we can't necessarily know unless we're getting there with a microscope and stuff. So like if you have a loaf of bread and there's some mold growing in it, you can cut the mold off and just eat what's not moldy. But the problem is there's no control. So any mold can get on that. Any bad molds, it's like this party for them to just say, hey, oh my God, great, there's food here, let's just go crazy. Whereas with fermentation, like you can take raw milk and you can leave it out on your counter and it will ferment, but because there's good bacteria in there, it's going to create a good environment. Now, people fear fermentation because they don't understand, but these things have been happening in societies for thousands and thousands of years, long before they even really knew what was going on. Yeah.
Well, for the person that's never fermented anything, what is the most bang for your buck fermentation to start with?
I mean, kraut is I'm making sauerkraut. And we teach at our homestead, we teach a lot of classes like fermentation. We teach meat curing and, kraut making and veggie, and, fermentation and stuff. But when you get into like things like meat, it starts to get a little more, you have to be a little more careful. But when it comes to fermenting anything that has sugars in it or like vegetables, it's actually incredibly safe. Once you understand the basic concept and you're just taking basically cabbage, cutting it up and salting it and creating an anaerobic environment where you're just making sure that the liquid is on top and that all the veggies are submerged under the water, you can leave that out for, some people do 5 days. I've done months and months and months, and you can even go a year plus. And
you just leave it like in a mason,
mason jar, as long as it's
liquid,
anaerobic.
Water? Or?
So what's beautiful about kraut, kind of like how wine is the ultimate fermented beverage, although you can ferment any fruit. Wine just has the right amount of sugar. It's got a lot of yeast in it, and it's just become this big thing. Kraut's the same, where you actually don't have to add liquid to it. Now, you can ferment any vegetable. Actually, any food in the world can be fermented. But some foods you have to add water and salt, and kraut just has enough of its own juices that when you start salting it, it starts breaking down, and you're just pushing it down in a mason jar, and the juices of the kraut are covering it.
Do you massage the kraut?
You can massage it. There's different
salt?
Beliefs. Some people are like, don't massage it, just let the salt do the process. I usually massage it and break it down. It feels good, and then I put it in a jar and
do you
let it
air
ride.
it out every once in a while, or how's that?
No,
work?
so you can, let's say this was like the mason jar,
Yeah.
right? And if the kraut's here and the water's on top of it, I can leave this open. Usually people will put something over it just to like keep flies out and dust and like a rubber band with a paper towel or something.
Okay.
But there are fermentation lids that you can use that keep oxygen out and allow carbon dioxide to escape.
Whoa.
Because carbon dioxide is going to...
On a simple mason jar, there's those type of lids?
Yeah, there's these cool lids that you can buy. There's all different companies that do it now. Some have like an airlock. Other ones just have like a little nipple. And it's basically like the gases are like farting, and letting carbon dioxide out. Wow. So if you let's say you have a beer, right? And it's fermented, you're taking a fermentation process by adding some kind of sugar to it. So after they make beer, they add back a little sugar, and that ferments, and they trap that in the bottle, and that creates the carbonation.
Oh, wow.
But if you have too much carbonation, the bottle can explode, so they have to kind of know how much to add.
I love the carbonation of beer. I think that's one of the reasons I like beer.
Yeah, and you can do that with anything. Like, kombucha is also similar. It's the same thing. There's microbes in there and yeast and things that are fermenting the sugars, and the carbonation is being produced. So same thing we were talking about meat earlier. Meat is just honey and water, and then you can add flavorings and stuff, but it's just honey and water that's fermenting. And I started in an open vessel, so most of the carbon dioxide releases. And once the alcohol is created, I need to put it in an airlock because eventually it will turn into vinegar. So when people open a bottle of wine, they're like,
it'll eventually turn into vinegar.
yeah, that's why when you're like, okay, this is what's cool about fermentation too, is that when you start to understand it and you create the right conditions, you can do kind of whatever you want. So you can make, people have a bottle of wine, they're like, oh, this is going sour. It's bad. It's like, no, actually it's turning into vinegar. And if you continue that process in the right way, you'll get red wine vinegar. So same, you can make mead vinegar. You can make vinegar out of all kinds of things.
Wow. Well, you mentioned that there's food all around us, like at these parks, and Ebengee Park is one place. It seems like we cross a lot of paths. What kind of, for people in Boulder, and maybe people could think about this worldwide, but like what kind of food is at that park?
I mean, even just the wild grapes. The first time I made wine was partially from grapes all over Ebengee Fine, these little tiny river grapes. And you can take the leaves and you can ferment them and you can make like dolmas.
I've seen a lot of, it seems like almost like Greek people
picking leaves,
taking all the leaves.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Yeah, or you can take the grapes and you can mash them up. And it's a labor of love for sure, especially the small ones, but you can ferment them. You can either add water or just use their own juices. And yeah, so you can, to kind of back up a little bit with fermentation, you can use a package of yeast like oftentimes beer does, but everything I do is wild. So there's yeast and microbes everywhere. It's on the foods, it's on surfaces, it's in the air, and we're just creating conditions so those yeast and microbes have an ability to thrive. Anyway, what other foods are in Ebengee Fine? What have we picked? There's a lot of like good herbs, things like mullein, things like lamb's quarter. Lamb's quarter is like a wild spinach that's I think like 10 times the amount of nutrients as regular spinach. We teach a foraging class as well, and I walk around a similar environment, and within 20 footsteps you can find 20 or 30 plants. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Where do people join you for these adventures? It sounds like you're now kind of doing more like immersive like workshops at your own homestead instead of doing retreats elsewhere. Is that right?
Yeah, we have different things that we teach. We teach just one-off classes. We have a homestead series. It's like 3 months long that people can come and really get immersed. And then we also do retreats just for like 1 or 2 people at a time at our homestead where you can stay with us and just see what it's like to be in this lifestyle where I wake up early, milk the goats, make cheese, bake bread in the morning, tend to the plants, take care of the animals, pick the eggs, just kind of do whatever we have to do. Yeah.
Wait, what all animals do you have on your farm or on your homestead?
We've got chickens, ducks, rabbits, goats, and a cat.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many goats?
4 goats, 2 moms, and they kidded this year, so we're getting milk now, which has been pretty cool because getting raw milk is... it sounds like you're really into the raw milk.
I am.
That's been a long labor of love to get to a place where we can like have our own milk, and it's been fun.
How much milk will you get from these 2 goats?
We're getting, so the babies are still drinking some. They're 3 months old now, but they're still drinking. So we're getting about a half gallon a day, and then
from 2 goats.
Yeah, maybe that will double. It's really good. I did bring you some milk.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Oh yeah, I brought you a few things too. Yeah. Oh man, love it. Thank you.
We have Nubians, and
I'll actually put a little bit on my coffee right now.
Yeah, nice. The Nubians, they have like one of the creamiest and highest fat
breed
content.
Of the goat.
Yeah,
Nubian.
So it's really good for cheese making and just for drinking and stuff.
Wow.
I also brought you some pickled eggs with some vinegar that we made, and some eggs from our chickens. Yeah.
How many chickens do you have?
We have right now 22 hens like for laying and a rooster, and then we have 25 birds we're raising for meat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And how many acres do you do this on?
We have 5 acres, but most of what we're doing right now is on closer to an acre. So we've like part of, homesteading and permaculture is like starting with like what's really close and kind of working your way out. We try to teach people like you actually don't need much land. And part of our philosophy around homesteading is it's not like an individual pursuit. Even if you don't have land, you can get involved. Like there's so many farmers that like we have friends at Yellow Barn and Elk Run and Jacob Springs. I'll go to Andre and he's like got all this extra milk, and I'm like, great, I'll make cheese or I'll make butter and bring you some back. Like also you mentioned the bartering thing. Like I'm the same. I love to trade and share, and you start to see that like self-sufficiency is more of it's a community. It's not really a self. It's like a no self thing.
All right. First of all, I'm curious about what are some of your like favorite barters these days, and then also this milk. I don't know if I smell any goatiness to it. I'll try it first.
Fresh this morning, yeah.
Oh, it's fresh this morning. Yeah. Nice. And do you use the milk? Who's milking them?
Just
You?
me,
You yourself?
every morning. Yeah. Milking.
Now I can taste it, and I like it.
A little something.
It's so sweet.
Yeah.
What the heck? Why is it? How is it so sweet?
Well, yeah, they have a really fatty. I think something about the sugars and the fat together give you just like a nice mouthfeel. Yeah.
Because all right, maybe for people that don't know this, why does some goat milk have like such a goaty,
super goaty? Yeah. Ours, especially like right when over time, I found like if it's like 3 days old, it's gonna start to taste maybe a little more goaty. But it's similar with goat meat. Like we harvest goats, not our own, but we harvest a woman in town's goats for her, and we also teach those harvesting classes. And
oh wow,
people are thinking goat milk is gonna be, or goat meat's gonna be really goaty, and it tastes amazing. It's just super clean and simple. There are different factors, like if you're not feeding the goats well, or if you have the males with the females, that can also taint the
that's what I've heard
taste and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, for us, we drink a lot of goat milk and make a lot of goat cheese and yogurt. And
do you ever milk it like right into your mouth?
I've done some. Well, I have a friend, my friend Bjorn. He grew up with goats, and last time he hadn't done it in a while, and he wanted to try it. He's like, we used to squirt it right into the kids' mouths. So I've been doing that a little bit, just like
I've done that before.
Teat to mouth, yeah.
It's the best milk ever.
Yeah,
I didn't like suck on the nipple, but you can squirt it right in there.
I haven't sucked on the nipple either. Yeah. And well, the irony was our babies, she's 15 months, and when we got these goats, they were babies, and my partner was learning how to breastfeed while I was learning how to bottle feed these baby goats. It was just kind of cool to see, because that's one experience as a man we don't necessarily get to have in the same way, but to see like a baby suckling on something right in front of you, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, quite amazing. Wow. I'm actually curious about the goat processing class. When is the next one of those?
June 8th.
And is that on your homestead as well? Okay. And then do y'all like divvy up the meat afterwards, or does the meat go
Everybody
back to
gets some meat. So basically, we've been doing it like in 2 days, and the second day is optional. The second day is more like hands-on butchering if you want to learn like full butchering. My best friend recently moved out here. He's been a butcher at a regenerative farm. He's been a farmer for a long time. So he's been really helpful in that piece. But day one is more like the ceremony coming together. We also talk a lot about death, because in our society, death is not talked about. We just see it's like death is bad, life is good, avoid it at all costs, take whatever crazy things, don't worry about what it's in it, and we'll just keep you alive. And we found like no matter what, the death somewhere is felt with animals, but we don't see the death. And I don't believe everybody's meant to, like, we're not all here to do the same things. So I don't believe everybody has to harvest their own animals, but to actually get to witness it and be part of that, and then learn about the gutting and the skinning process. So we try to keep it very hands-on and open. Like, hey, just let's talk about this. Let's get real. Allow for people's expression, because it brings up different things for different people. And then at some point, let's remember that like this is also food, and we're sustaining our community, and we're and that we can actually have a little bit of like rejoice in that too. There's the sadness, and then there's the nourishment of the.
How do y'all kill the goat?
Just one cut with a knife. Yeah. Quick.
So you slit the throat while it's alive?
Yeah.
Okay. Because couldn't you like hit it in the head first with something?
There is the stunning, and like, there's a lot of different beliefs around what's better. We found that the most humane way is just one super sharp blade, just cut with a knife, and that's that. Same with when we do chicken harvest and stuff. Yeah, there's of course some people will shoot and or stun and then cut, but yeah.
Yeah, we once did that at a retreat in Nicaragua, where we got it was not even technically some sort of like, I don't know if there was like maybe a hybrid of a goat and a cow. They had it was some sort of different breed.
I don't know.
And my brother and I did that goat with the group that wanted to participate.
How was that for you?
Oh, I actually slit the throat, and my brother first killed it though with a knife to the brain. like under the.
Oh, wow.
We were just kind of being guided by the locals. It was super intense, super important, super impactful. I learned a lot in like such a short period of time, and learned a lot about the tribe of people that we had. I mean, some people were extremely quiet and offended and did not want to even look at that meat. And then some people said it was the most impactful experience of their life.
Yeah. I would definitely get the latter a lot. And I
Yeah,
think,
because this was a little bit of a surprise. And
Yeah,
like we kind of
surprise,
explained, like
yeah.
this, we're gonna. And everyone knew we were
Yeah.
eating meat, but like tonight we're gonna have goat,
Wow.
and we got the goat here.
Yeah, it's very impactful because it's something that's been just part of society for so long until, the last 100 years or whatever, when people started getting away from it. And suddenly people get to remember something that maybe was like taken away from them. And we actually have a lot of people that are like ex-vegans or vegetarians that just are like, okay, if I'm going to eat meat, I want to be part of the process and know what that feels like. And for me, it never feels good. That's the weird part, is like, I feel like I know I'm meant to share this work, but it never feels good. It's not this like super exciting, inspiring thing. There's a deep, deep sadness to it, but it feels right, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a big topic. It's and another thing that I'm looking back, when I look back, how was that for me? Well, another thing that was crazy, one of the most impactful parts for me, was how easy it was to like just spill the blood of that goat.
There is the first deer I ever did, there was something very, and it was like just roadkill. I've only done some roadkill deers at this point, but there was something primal about it that like did turn on. And I don't know, for me, I found that there's like the life and the sadness, but once the goat's like hanging and gutted and you're skinning it, then it does feel more just like meat. Like once the soul's left the body, there's just there's such a scale of emotions and stuff, but there's a primal nature that turned in on me. I was like, oh, even though I don't really know what I'm doing the first time I did it, like I kind of already knew. I knew sort of where to cut, and there's certain things just made sense that were like in my DNA or something.
Mm-hmm. I also literally mean how physically easy it was to like take. And it's kind of like when I think about like buildings. A building can take years and years to be there, to get built, and then decades and decades or centuries of standing there, and then all of a sudden, like within minutes, it looks like whether it's an explosion or what, it can just be demolished. And that's what I mean. It's like I had this goat, and like how much life force has gone into this goat, and just how simple it was just to take it away.
Yeah, I feel that too. And even thinking about my own self, and like if that were to happen to me, like how quickly mine could be taken away too. Yeah,
it's big time. It's and I don't know if it's for everyone either, or especially these days or not. I'm not sure, but it seems like for the people that want to get in touch with that part of themselves and the community of even the animals they're eating, it's big time.
Yeah.
So I'm inspired that y'all are doing that there as well. I mean, y'all are doing so many things. I brought you some tallow.
Oh,
do you have your own tallow?
Oh, I would love.
tallow?
Yeah, this is great.
That's the
Thank
white
you.
chocolate. I was using that at the sauna
White
earlier,
chocolate.
so that's just I used it a little bit.
That's okay.
And this is our latest creation.
Wow, that smells good. Whoa.
This is our femur creamer. That's freeze dried bone broth.
Whoa.
From 100% grass fed bison bones, and I put a couple chips on top. Those chips are what it looks like before we mill it, but that goes great in coffee. I mean, you can mix that in milk. You might be able to do some fermentation stuff with that, but you can see the essence of that chip there.
That's really good. That could be like sprinkled on
Anything,
something. Yeah,
everything: meat, potatoes, rice.
like a seed. Yeah, wow, that's really good.
I think people are making like little baby formulas out of it, like with that and colostrum and mixing it into water.
Thank you.
Yeah, those are two cool things from Tribe Vitamins. I'm excited the pickled boiled eggs. How is this?
Boil them and pickle them.
Boil them and pickle them.
So yeah, make vinegars out of all kinds of things. Have you had pickled eggs before?
I don't. I think I have, but not.
I'm obsessed, and they're a weird thing for people when they hear like pickled egg, but it's just like
I'll have one.
It's just like an egg salad. Like it's just got a vinegary egg. It's to me delicious.
It smells good.
Yeah.
It does remind me of an egg salad very much. I'm gonna finish this coffee and then I'll have some of that fermented non-spit beer.
This is the non-spit. You'll never. This is something my partner made. It's a oil that does have some goat tallow from our recent harvest, and beeswax and chamomile and lavender, jojoba, olive oil.
Wait,
She
so
makes these really
this
nice
is like
oils.
a for skin?
Yeah, skin,
Wow.
all body. Can go
Beautiful bottle
anywhere.
too.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've met Aja. How long have y'all lived here in Boulder?
She's been here like 13 years. I moved to Colorado 8 years ago and then moved to Boulder right before the lockdown, like 2 weeks before lockdown. I was
Wow.
actually in Encinitas for a month. I had just gone through a divorce and was like moving around California,
Wow.
trying to figure out if I wanted to live there, and then came back to Boulder. And 2 weeks later on my birthday, it said lockdown, and here we are.
So we're very similar ages because you said you just had your birthday.
Yeah, 40. Yeah.
Wow, and mine's in like, I think like 3 weeks, June 1st.
Wow. How old are you turning?
The same age.
Oh wow. Oh, cool. 40
Yeah.
club. Nice.
And that's been a bit of a secret. Because I mentioned my friend Dustin Thomas.
Yeah.
He has a June 1st birthday, and he wouldn't tell me his age. And I whatever the outcome was, like, why don't I stop sharing my age? That's an interesting thing. And I stopped doing that for so long. But whatever.
Well, I think it's inspired. Like, people when they hear that I'm 40, they're kind of shocked. I feel like it's similar with you, just like age, because you like look healthy and vibrant. So it's nice. I grew up being told that like when you're 40, you're like old and your body's like shutting down and stuff. And so I think it's inspiring for people to be like, oh, I can be 40 and be like healthy. And
Well, I think a major theme, I'm like trying to think of like my last 20, every podcast guest I've had since we've been in the studio here at Let's Do Podcast, I am 90+% sure they would all say they're first of all, they were probably all over 40, or all over 35. And I bet they would all say they're much healthier now than like 10 or 15 or 20 years ago.
oh my God.
That meme. And it sounds like you have several books. I have that one, Breaking Normal. Like I think the title of my second book might sound something like "Your Projection is Not My Placebo."
I like that. That's good.
And most of the people on this show, they are making me want to have a subtitle, like something like "Unless I Want It to Be," because most of the people on the show are projecting positive ideas for what can happen in the future. But I think a lot of the people that don't listen to this show might be under like a spell or a hypnosis of just like straight projections that become their placebos from like parents, preachers, and teachers that are not necessarily trying to hurt them. But I don't think these are the best placebos to self-impose.
Yeah, and I think like the stuff you're doing and the people you're talking to, they are creating an impact. And I see that like in my own life with, even to go back to the thing with my dad and my parents, like at first, there was this skepticism of like the barefoot thing, but then it's like, well, you're doing it and you're healthy, and he's an intelligent person, so he can see like, the dots kind of connect, and suddenly like something opens up. And that's what I appreciate about just what's going on in the world today, and the kind of stuff that you're sharing, the people you're having on, is that if something makes sense, it's hard to like really argue it. You can try if you really want to, and there are a lot of people that are maybe just in their own thing, but we try to do like what's simple, because from a simple place, if it makes sense, you can't deny it, and you do it. Like if I eat well, if I don't eat things that poison me, and I eat like fermented foods that have probiotics and living life force in them, good things tend to happen. It's the same. Like a great example is the sourdough thing. We teach sourdough classes and we make sourdough all the time, and there's this whole stigma around gluten right now.
Yeah.
It's bad, and people, it's just like gluten bad. They just demonize gluten. It's like gluten's not the problem, but somebody decide, like marketing geniuses out there tried to get us into gluten's bad. You're like, well, people have been eating bread for centuries and eating wheat, and what's the missing formula? It's like, oh, maybe the type of wheat that we're eating and what it's sprayed with and the fact that it's not fermented is the problem.
I so resonate with this because I grew up eating some pretty crappy bread when I was younger. Like the bread that's like somehow stays the same
Wonder bread
in the shelf for years. Like I don't know what that stuff is. So I think I became a little anti-bread at one point in my life. But then when I cleaned up my diet and I started eating sourdough, like good sourdough, I realized I feel pretty good. Like, unless I eat a lot of it, then I sometimes feel a little repercussions. But if I have a nice dose of sourdough, I have like I'm so. Once again, like this whole gluten thing, it's like your projection is not my placebo, because sourdough bread is like one of my favorite foods, and I feel pretty good eating it when it's a good bread.
Yeah, and it really, a lot of, just like with the vegans going to meat eaters, like there's so much around gluten and people realizing like, oh, I've been lied to or tricked for so long. So maybe that's not the reality.
Why is that? Why is sourdough so much better for people? Is it just straight because of the fermentation, or?
So something, there's a couple things. One is the quality of the wheat. So And the fact that a lot of sourdough is not sourdough, like you can go to Whole Foods and buy like sourdough, like, oh, I've got this sourdough bread and people told me sourdough is better, but I still feel like crap. It's like, well, if there's yeast on the ingredients and there's all these things in it, it's not sourdough. So they're adding often sourdough flavorings to something, calling it sourdough and screwing everybody. But what makes sourdough special is that you're fermenting the wheat, and when wheat's fermented, it's doing a lot of things. One of the things is unlocking the potential of the wheat, unlocking the minerals and the nutrients that are just kind of like stuck in there. So that process of fermentation starts to break things down and make them more bioavailable to us. Basically, the microbes are like our first line of digestion. And because they're breaking them down for us, it's easier for our gut and our body to absorb all these nutrients and minerals and things that otherwise would pass right through. And also, a lot of the gluten does get broken down in the sourdough process. So there's different ways to look at it, but if somebody is gluten sensitive and they really do have an issue, just ferment your bread longer. So you can ferment your bread for a half a day and eat it, but we usually do like 2-3+ days of fermentation. The longer that goes, the more gluten gets digested. I think up to like 97%. You might start to lose some of the rise, but you're going to get this really sour, delicious bread.
Wow. Well, yeah, I'm excited. I love this podcast, especially for reasons like this. I'm like, okay, now I get to meet my neighbor that's like, you definitely are walking the talk and living the life of things that I'm very interested in learning more about.
Well, come by anytime.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you over to the homestead.
Appreciate you for that, what you're doing and that invite. What about barters? Any cool barters lately?
I've been doing some trading actually, like for animals. We'll have farms that are like, hey, will you take our flock of 10 chickens that aren't laying anymore and just give us a couple back? That one's nice. The Andre butter thing was great because getting local butter is next to impossible. Yeah, always different things. Often fermenting. Like I have a neighbor who grows a lot of food, and I'll, ferment things for him and give him stuff back. And
what do you think the most we were talking about krauts and the previous podcast about yogurts. You gave me this pickled egg. Let me try this. Do you think I should just put the whole thing in my mouth at once or bite it in half?
Just take a bite, maybe. Right. Whatever you want. Yeah.
Where's Momo?
Dog.
That was good. Yeah. You want to try some?
Enjoy to see you on joint. I will try.
I love eggs, especially good eggs, and the pickling is nice.
Yeah, I think there's a weird fear, understandable, but weird fear around it. But I'm obsessed with those. And the way we tend to eat is we have fresh bread. Maybe we cook up some meat or veggies, and then I just open up jars from my fridge of endless jars and just start taking out krauts and jams and pickly things. And that's most of our meals are like that.
That's good. I know. We're gonna have to put a retreat together between Andre, Alice, Sean's honey idea, what you're doing.
That'd be cool.
Maybe the sauna, the Ember and Ice guys at Ebony Fine Park. Maybe one of my bison suppliers up in northern Colorado. Ever been part of a bison harvest?
I almost got to attend one recently, but didn't go through. But that'd be really interesting. Yeah.
I know Donnie Dust, who was here, he has one coming up.
Really?
He does it with only stone tools. And they're doing that in Colorado, June 1st.
Really?
He might have a spot available. Wow.
Whoa.
Those animals are... So, what were you saying?
I think there is going to be a Breaking Normal retreat.
Oh, yeah, Breaking Normal Boulder.
With bison harvest.
Bison Badassador type of retreat coming up here.
What a majestic creature, though. I love that you're making this stuff and using freeze dryer too.
Yeah, so most if you ever had a collagen powder or a bone broth powder, it's gonna. I haven't seen another company that people know of that freeze dries. They do a spray dry technique, and I think freeze drying is the way to go.
What else do you freeze dry?
All of our products are freeze dried. Not the tallow. The tallow is that's pure bison kidney fat. But all of our products in the capsules are all freeze dried.
Wow.
So that's raw bison liver, heart, testicles. Elk velvet, elk liver, and elk heart. And one time we had elk and yak testicles, in a testicle blend. It was bison, yak, and elk testicles. But they were all freeze-dried.
Blend. I've never heard those two words in a sentence together.
Do you eat many? Have you eaten many testicles?
I've eaten some Rocky Mountain oysters in my day. Yeah.
Have you ever eaten them raw?
No, I haven't.
There's something about eating raw organ meats,
Yeah.
and that's why we freeze dry them raw.
Yeah, I've eaten a lot of raw organ meats, but I don't think I've done testicle.
Yeah, the testicles
Have
are
I? Yeah.
like scallops, kind of, but they are potent.
Potent.
Yeah, I feel like there's a strength.
Yeah, there's something.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's amazing.
How are we doing on time, Yabel? What's time? 55 minutes. All right. Man, I feel like I have ask you 1,000 questions. Is there anything else you want to make sure that we acknowledge here?
I mean, just to maybe reiterate with the fermentation that, and a lot of like what we kind of go over in the classes is there's so much fear around fermenting because of things like botulism. But if you know what you're doing, it's so rare that you're going to have an issue. And I just like want to remind people that fermentation is this beautiful, wonderful thing that we've been doing forever, and don't feel like the sterilized, ultra processed, what's the word they use in milk?
Ultra pasteurized?
Pasteurized,
Yeah.
that's the word. Yeah. That's going to be safer. I get why people are in that world, but it's like the more you know, the more empowered you can be to make those choices. And if you just understand the basics of fermentation and what it really means, there's this endless world of stuff there. And there's so much food wasted in our country. It's like 50% of food goes to waste. We dumpster dive a lot. We love to dumpster dive.
I've done that before.
Yeah. And in like you don't know what you're going to get. And that's part of the beauty of like eating seasonally is, right, you have to, whatever's available, you have to be able to cook or ferment or preserve. It's kind of the same with dumpster diving. You don't know what's going to be there, and you open it up, and if you know how to ferment, I've had times where I've gotten in the dumpster just like, pounds and pounds and pounds of cream, and I just make butter and culture it first because it makes it safer. Or I've gotten tons of peppers and things. Peppers, which are like $7 or $8 a pound, but for some reason they end up more than anything in the dumpster. And then I'll just make like hot sauce and things like that out of it. And if you're concerned about like eating out of the dumpster, first you can clean the food, but by fermenting it, you're making it safer. So there's 79, I think like the stat's always changing, but it's around 79 million people get sick, airborne food illnesses a year. And there's actually never been a reported case of somebody getting sick from eating something fermented, as far as like fruits and vegetables go. So it takes away all the concerns about botulism and the other things because you're creating an acidic environment where that stuff can't thrive.
Yeah, I have a video somewhere out there because I used to have a channel with my brothers called Rob Roz. I don't know if you ever heard
Rob
of
Roz, no.
Rob Roz. But we would like go to the local like Earth Fair in Athens, Georgia, and the best. Sometimes, most of the times, the best produce, the organic ones that like were too ripe, is what they were throwing away.
Yeah.
So, but I remember one time getting like a 40-pound bag of greens that they had just thrown out, and we just juiced the whole thing and drank it. It was like we could call it trash juice or something like that. And it was ridiculous because that would probably been like the juice we were drinking was probably, if we bought it, it would have probably been worth about $80.
And that just goes to waste. And it's because of our perception that we walk in the grocery store and everything looks pretty and perfect. But that's not how food's supposed to look. And I think a lot of like what we're kind of trying to get people connected to in the homesteading world and why more people are becoming aware of this stuff is that when you start to look at nature, everything does make sense. If you walk through a forest, it can all seem totally random. All the trees, everything's sporadic, and this is that, and that's that. But when you start like digging into the soil, there's a story in there. And when you start looking at the trees, you're like, oh, there's that trees there is the overstory. And then there's these other trees that are smaller. And then when that one falls down, there's more nourishment. And there's something about nature that's just intuitive for us. And the more we connect with it, the more I think we feel connected to ourselves and to truth. And when we're just in this world where it's like everyone for themselves and you can make it on your own, you're living in the illusion that there isn't everyone for themselves. But we're all dependent on something. So why not be dependent on something that, makes sense and feels good?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, your daughter's 15 months?
15 months, yeah.
She drank raw milk?
Oh, yeah. And the goat milk's great because it's the closest to human milk. So we were able to feed that to her. I mean, my partner still breastfeeds all the time. But when she's like really tired or something, you just give her goat milk and she loves it and she loves the yogurt. It's like one of her favorite things.
Yeah. Is she eating anything else or mostly like yogurts? And
she eats everything.
Everything.
She loves bread and meat. The first thing she ever ate was just I made these ribs and I put little meat on it and gave it to her. And that was the first time I saw her like throw a tantrum when we tried to take it away. She's like, this isn't mine.
A first bite of meat is something special.
Yeah, and same, we feed her some raw liver and things like that too. And
Raw liver,
Yeah.
raw milk for your 15-month-old. Do you vaccinate her against things like this?
no, she's never seen a doctor in her whole life. Home
I
birth.
say that because my daughter's the same way. She's never had a vaccine. We've taken her to that's a side note.
How old
But
is she?
she's 8 now.
Wow,
8 now,
that's
yeah.
cool.
But I say this partly because I've been taught it's becoming it seems like a topic people are more willing to talk about lately. Because I remember when she was probably about 15 months or younger, maybe like 7 months. Her mom and I were doing like a video blog. And one day, so many people were asking us, what are we going to do about vaccines? What are we going to do about this? And we just like kind of simply explained, like, no, she doesn't have any vaccines. We're not going to get any. Like, we're not planning on it, We're not dogmatic about it. And then the amount of like vitriol from probably like bots, I don't even know what it was, but all these comments that went crazy. And this was like way before COVID and everything. This was like, they went crazy. All this hate on public, like from whoever these anonymous accounts were. But privately, we got so many messages from parents that were like confessing privately to us that what had happened once their child got like this, whatever vaccine, whatever number it was. And it was not fun to see these messages. And it was alarming because I'm like, wait, what? These should be the messages that are public. Like, why is this privately coming to us? And in the meantime, if you look at our comments, and I could see why they were scared to say it because what's happening publicly on our comments or whatever. But then, like, the last guy that was on the podcast here, Dustin, he was pretty clear. He believes his mom dropped dead of the COVID vaccine.
Yeah, it's.
And I'm like, if I can invite a place for people just to at least, whether they're vaccinating or not, just talk about it more freely instead of it being such like a little secretive topic. I also am inviting that here, and I think that's very inspiring that not only your daughter is having raw milk and raw liver, but is also not going to the normal doctor to get the normal vaccines or any at all.
Yeah, and I grew up in a conventional world. I totally get why people do that and why they think it's right. But what's been sad to me is to see this new thing where, people are so upset if you don't do what they do, or they found a way to be like, you're harming me because that kind of stuff. And what I found similar, like online, I used to have a cooking show online with my brother too, and that was
What's your brother's name?
His name's Mike.
I just feel like we know each other from like 10 years ago, like
could be
somewhere.
possible,
I
yeah.
said Mike and Joshua.
Yeah.
They had a cooking show.
And I used to go by Josh. It was called Brothers Green Eats, and
I think this sounds familiar.
and then I sold my half to him, and he went on to do this thing called Pro Home Cooks, and he's had his homestead as well. He's on Long Island and done really well for himself. And but I got so burnt out by the online world because the comments, even though most of them were positive, we got to a certain level of like notoriety where there was enough negativity coming our way, and I just got lost in myself. And coming to Boulder and coming to Colorado, and like I still do some online stuff, but I'm just much more local focused. And I'm like, that stuff doesn't really happen. Like the people that I meet and that I talk to, like everyone for the most part is really friendly and kind and open-minded. But then on the internet, it's this whole thing. And it's easy to feel like this echo chamber, or like the loudest comment must be like have some truth to it online. But it's not the case in the real world. Like most people are more open and more kind. And so I appreciate that you've had a lot of people on your podcast that are local and doing really great things. Because to me, it's like what's the quote? Like, think global, act local. It's something about like the community here, people that really do care about food and about people, has been really nice to be part of.
Yeah, we are on the parallels between us are amazing. Not only like the age and maybe our lineage and our looks and our names and all that.
What is going on?
But I when did you get your? I've gone through a divorce. When did that happen for you?
2018 to 19. So wait, yeah, COVID was so 2019.
What? That's the dates mine started.
Wow.
What did you remember? What month?
September.
Okay, mine started pretty much in October.
Well, maybe September, October. I remember I went to Fish Weekend, and then.
Where were you living at that time?
I was living in Denver.
I was in St. Vrain.
Okay, yeah, and then, but it was finalized March 1st, 2020, and then my birthday on March 13th. That was like the first thing we had to cancel, and then all of a sudden COVID hit, and it was just
March 13th wasn't that when the the national crisis was declared?
It was like I just remember we had to cancel. We had like my friend and I had similar birthdays, and we had a little gathering, and we were like, "Oh, we need to cancel this." And then
Yeah, I know this time.
it's just we had just moved into Sunshine Canyon together. He got this beautiful place. I asked me to move with him, and I was just here. And I didn't really know anybody in Boulder. I had a few friends.
Wow, so that happened to us. Yeah, I ended up in Golden, like on a little community mountain house during that whole time.
Wow.
It was awesome, but then now I'm in Boulder. I used to basically, before this whole thing, 2019, I used to travel the world almost full time, like always in a car, not always, but a lot of times in a car and a plane. Like I went to all 50 states. So it was like just knocking off countries. Like I want to go there, I want to go there, I want to go to this hot spring, I want to surf there, I want to do this. And now I'm in Boulder without a car, and I barely like leave my 2-mile radius.
Wow, that's amazing. Similar, yeah. I was traveling around the world a lot too. Yeah, for work and stuff.
And I think Boulder has that. There's like a lot of these people that have traveled the world, like now staying in like a little nook in Boulder.
Well, you think about a tree, like when you take a tree out of a pot and you put it into the ground, like it takes a long time for that tree to root. There's some sort of transplant shock that happens. And I think people are trying to search for all these things. And I found like I've loved traveling the world, and I feel grateful for the opportunities. But to me, at some point, it started to feel just like extraction. It was really hard to actually create and to give back, because so much of it was like, I'm here, I'm renting this place, I'm buying foods and stuff. But, when a tree takes root, it can actually take care of itself, and it can help take care of the forest. And I love that metaphor, because that's kind of what we're trying to do. Like, we're mostly at our homestead, and we come into town to get provisions and, go to the creek or whatever, but we're mostly there, and that's what creates the roots, and that's what helps us feel grounded.
It's pretty amazing. I'll be excited to find out what else what other parallels we have. Do you have any questions for me? I'm going to sign this book for you.
Yeah, I'd love to read your book.
Whoa.
When did you write that?
So my daughter was born in April 7th, 2017. And then I think I published this on my birthday, June 1st.
Wow.
After I saw her birth, she was birthed we had a great beach set up in Encinitas in Leucadia, on Neptune Avenue. I don't know if you know the area.
I was on Beacon Beach.
Oh yeah, so we were a few blocks away. Wait, were you with David Steele?
Yes, it was.
Guess what? My daughter's birthday here, my most recent one, April 7th, we went to Avanti to have a party with all our friends, and guess who walks out of Avanti? David Steele with his daughter.
So that's so funny, because David Steele wrote, like, maybe whatever that, I think that probably that time, he wrote me and was like, I think my daughter just took your sourdough class. And I didn't make the connection at the class, but she was in the class, and then was like, hey, I met this guy, and he taught me bread, and David put it together.
Yeah, well, so it blew my mind, because I don't know anyone else born on Neptune Avenue other than my daughter. And then but when I think of Neptune Avenue, I think of David Steele. And I'm like, what the Mr. Neptune? Wait, this is my daughter. And I like introduced my daughter, his daughter. And
That's true.
David Steele.
I lived with him and his crew for a month, and then came here literally I went from there to here, and then 2 weeks later was COVID.
Whoa.
Wait, were you in Encinitas at that time?
Nope.
Okay.
Encinitas, we left a little earlier. We did a retreat in like Washington, and I think maybe the next Austin, and then we stayed in Austin. I forget the timeline, but we were in the Northwest for a while in the summertime, and then went to Austin in the wintertime, and then by my birthday we got put to Colorado in June 2019. June 2019. I went to a Telluride to see to go to the Mountain Film Festival. My friend Raj Lahoti. I don't know if you know Raj. There's a guy named Tom Shadyac who I think lives here in town now. He's the guy that directed like Liar Liar and Ace Ventura. Oh. He's a legend.
Oh yeah,
And I think he lives somewhere near between me and you now, because I've seen him getting sourdough at Dry Storage, and I want to get him in here. I think he wants to start a podcast with Bill. I don't know if he's done it yet, but he invited us to the Mountain Film Festival, and I didn't want to be in Austin in the summer. Like, it's just so hot there, and I was like, let's go to Telluride. Let's just go to Colorado. Our retreats in Breckenridge. And then we stayed, and then that's when the whole new life began in St. Vrain in October of 2019.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah. I actually left during March 13th, when the declaration of the pandemic was going on. I went to Georgia with my daughter and to stay with my family to figure out what the freak was going on. Because I didn't know how serious this was going to be. It was kind of like unnerving. they were talking about like the meat not being available, and I was like, I started thinking about putting like a hog highway together. I was like, I know people that know how to get thousands of pigs in one day in Texas. We could just like, what are they talking about? We don't have meat, like, because people were freaking about everything at that time, and which is understandable. But
We
anyways,
didn't know anything. Yeah.
seems like we know a little bit more now, and I trust we'll keep knowing, or at least knowing less and less.
Pull back
I
the
saw that
curtain.
on your Instagram. Was it your Instagram described as like? Do you remember what you say on your Instagram?
What?
Val, can you look up his Instagram? I want you to read that real quick, and then we can say see you soon in North Boulder.
Speaking of pigs, we're getting some piglets from Andre because we're gonna do some. Well, our plan is to just like harvest them ourselves and have like just one family or one person that wants to do the other one and learn the process.
Oh yeah, Yoshua. Let's see. It's because your description is funny. We can end it on this, unless you have any questions for me.
No,
Do you have a question for me by any chance?
Probably a million, but
It says, I'm a microbe medium. I sing to my supper, and I know nothing.
Follow him.
Learn more in my latest book, or don't. Hard off the shoes. Music is medicine. Colorado. Yoshua Greenfield. You enjoy life on Instagram.
you enjoy life.
You enjoy life.
That's our homestead. You enjoy life.
Yeah.
Man, thank you. Well, I'm so stoked that we followed the synchronicity here, and I'm excited to see where it takes us
It's
next.
great. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. And so quickly, it was just like boom.
And thank you for saying yes
Yeah.
so quickly and easy. I think there's a nice grace to what's going on here in Boulder with the local community, and definitely you're being a major player of that. Did you have a question for me by any chance?
Yeah. I mean, it's so many, but I also don't know what our timing is. But
You can
yeah.
ask. I think we can.
We're 111.
111. That's usually the time
111.
limit. But I'm willing. I usually try to do 44 minutes to an hour and 11. So we did it. We can end it with a question.
Well, I would
if that
just
sounds good. to
yeah,
you.
I would love to know what inspired you to start this podcast.
So what inspired the book was the 10 years of retreats. I was sitting on that for a long time. Then I saw my daughter birthed April 7th, as we mentioned, 2017. I'm like, I'm going to publish the book now because I've been like 98% done with it. But after I saw that birthing, I'm like, oh, it's my turn to birth the book. So in a way, like my daughter was like my midwife for my book. Yeah. And then when that was published, we were in Austin and around Christmas time. And I was staying with my friend JP Sears, who wrote the foreword to this book. We used to do a lot of work together. And he had just got these podcast, nice like Sennheiser mobile podcast set up. And I was like, I knew I was going to be there for like the next 2 weeks. I'm like, do you mind if I borrow those for, I'm going to launch the Breaking Normal podcast and do 12 days to Christmas leading up to Christmas. And I'm going to see if I can hit the new and noteworthy. And I'm going to do one episode every day. And you're down here with your headsets. He's like, please do. Like we always encourage each other to like do bigger things.
Cool.
So he kind of put pressure on me to do it. And I did that. And he was the first guest.
Cool.
And then we was always in Austin. There's so many people. We were like, well, who I had an awesome first 12 guests of Breaking Normal are awesome, and I think they just keep getting better. So thank you for being number 185, maybe.
Yeah. And next year gonna be a Let's Do podcast in Austin, so we can flew there and make podcast.
Yeah, Austin is full of. I mean but that was years ago. Austin seems like it's changed. I haven't been there for a while now.
Same.
Austin was like Boulder, and right now is I think 10 times more than Boulder, like bigger and same amount of people.
Yeah, I've heard that Boulder described as the smaller Austin in the mountains, and I think that's not too far fetched.
Interesting. I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
What's one parenting advice?
Okay, all right. So advice for me, one of the things I'm most like proud of that I've done as a parent is I've always talked to Davina like she is as smart as me or smarter. I mean, at all ages. I'm never like go like as everybody like, what's up, you little dummy, you know nothing. I'm like I always like I think she's smarter than me. I think my daughter's wiser than me.
That's great.
So I aim to be the student and also protect her. Like I understand that certain things she's not as aware of, like street signs and like certain little cultural memes and like what's appropriate. So, I aim to guide her, but I really treat her as the teacher, and I speak up to her, not down to her. And a lot of people are amazed by her communication skills, and I think that has something to do with it.
That makes sense. I like that. Yeah. Wow.
Thanks for asking that.
Mm.
Yeah, but my best advice is like learn from your children. Your children are the masters. They're closer to the source. We've been here longer. I've been so inspired always by like the people most like just freshly born and the ones that are about to go on.
Yeah, there's a wisdom on both sides. Yeah, in and out.
And they seem to be a lot less addicted to approval and more just authentically letting life go through them.
I see that. That's maybe the coolest thing to see. I mean, there's so many things with my daughter, but just seeing a human that's just doing what they're doing, like on instinct, and not thinking about, is this right? Is there going to be repercussions? Is this socially okay? They're just doing it. What they want, it's yes, it's no. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you, Yavel. Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you, Yavel.
It's great to make the connection.
Thank
Keep
you,
breaking
Daniel.
normal, y'all.